5 seconds. Sir, it seems to be that there are three principal ways in which we can learn to do things or do understand things: looking, reading, or hearing. We can watch things done by other people and copy their movements and actions. This is the way in which we learn. When we are very young, babies and all young animals, of course, are very quick to copy the acts of their mothers, and in this way, they learn a very great amount in a remarkably short time. We continue throughout our lives to learn in this way, for we are always seeing others do certain things in certain ways and then making some attempt to carry out like acts ourselves. When we grow up, however, we are able to make observations within much wider limits, and we are free to learn great numbers of things simply by watching. Not only can we see the life going on round about us, but we have also brought right into the home the moving picture and the TV set. There is perhaps no more interesting and successful method of learning about other countries than to watch moving pictures that have been taken in those places. Most of us find it much easier to remember what we have seen than to remember what we have read in a book or have been told. Even a very good writer telling us of scenes and doings in far off lands cannot bring to our mind so clear a picture of those countries as can a quite short moving picture. That is why many schools use both TV and the moving picture in the course of instruction in subjects as different from one another as history and science. In such subjects, mere reading is no enough to give a complete picture of the material under consideration. We can then use our eyes when we want to learn, showing our powers of seeing and of observation. We must also, however, use our powers of hearing. To most of us, this is a difficult way of learning, and we have often to work quite hard to master the art of learning through hearing. An exception is, of course, the subject of languages, for clearly there is no better way to learn a language than to hear other people speaking it. Mere book knowledge of a language is a poor thing, for a language does not really live until it is used. When, however, we are dealing with ideas, learning through hearing becomes more difficult. We have to learn first to pay attention. How often does a teacher say, "Pay attention, please"? And how necessary are the words? If no notes are being taken, the words once said have gone forever. If they live at all, it must be in the memories of those who have heard the words. When we first go to school, we think we are learning to write and to read and to do little sums, but in fact, we are also learning something of even more importance. We are learning to pay attention, to hear what the teacher says, and to hold it in our memories. The person who is able to pay attention is a much better learner than the person whose mind is always going off into other fields of thought, even though the two people may have equally good minds in other respects. Many people who attend public meetings find that their attention is not always given to the person speaking. And it is indeed a good man or woman who can hold our complete attention for half an hour or more. It is probably true that most people learn most things most easily through reading. They can read the material they wish to learn and can read it again many times if they so desire. They can memorize the written word with a reasonable degree of ease and can usually master a far larger amount of material in this way in a given time than would be possible by any other method. Seeing, reading, and hearing all play their part in our complete development as we grow into men and women. In the evening, there was himself and there was his brother. Generally, they were both at home, for neither of them was much given to going out. They did not like parties and they did not like the pictures. They did not care to pay high prices to see plays which, in their opinion, were generally not worth the money that had to be spent in getting up to town and paying for a reasonable place. Neither of the men had married and neither had a regular girlfriend. Their evenings were therefore generally spent in the house, and it was the house that they both loved more than any other thing in the world. It was certainly a lovely little house, far enough away from the city to be almost in the country. It was peaceful and there were good views from the windows from the outside. It looked in most ways much like the home of anyone with a reasonably well paid position in the city. Few people ever stepped inside, but those who did were greatly surprised, for certainly the inside of the house was not in any way like the common run of houses. It was full of the most valuable things, all carefully placed and marked. What had been two living rooms had been made into one very large room in the form of the letter L. The room was white and as clean as if it had been in the hands of the painter that very day. Everything in the room was clearly a showpiece, something brought at a sale and for which a high price had to be paid. The pictures were old masters and the books were beautifully covered. The table and all other pieces had been carefully brought one by one as opportunity and money made such buying possible. It was such a room as one might expect to find in one of the great houses built in a past age, but no one could possibly expect to see anything of the kind in such a place.